Okay, welcome back, everybody. What did you say? I seem to be live in the right one, unless Jitindriyā tells me otherwise. So I hope the morning meditation and the walking meditation was something that you could settle into. And if you have any questions around the walking meditation, there's an opportunity after this silent sitting with a little bit of guidance to ask those sort of questions, or anything else that we've said thus far this morning. If you're not clear about, we can discuss that soon. But for now, we'll use the next 30 minutes or so just to practice in the formal sitting meditation. So please, if you're just switching on to live, just get yourself comfortable. Just checking some technical issues here, but I think we're okay. So sitting upright wherever you are in a relaxed way, and whether you feel more comfortable with eyes closed or open. If they're open, just find a point in front of you where you can gently gaze and not be distracted, and that you can find that your eyes can feel not strained. But if it's better for you to close your eyes, then please do that. And it's often good as we move into a formal sitting just to take a few conscious deep breaths. So you can do that now about 3 or 4 times, and make them full belly breaths, so breathing deeply from the abdomen, filling the lungs, and then releasing any pent-up tension or frustrations, tiredness too. So it's a good way to bring energy back into the body before we attempt to sit still in an upright position. So just do that now in your own time. And once you've taken a few deep conscious breaths in and out, then allow the breath to come back to its natural rhythm. And begin by simply noticing the effects of the walking meditation, what effect that has had on your body and mind. You might feel that things are moving a little. The body might feel a little bit alive, more even. Or maybe you feel just tired. Whatever you feel is fine. There's no right way to feel. But often people find that walking meditation can just bring more balance and equalness into the physiology. And the mind too can start to settle a little bit when we have that free flow of movement. But now that we're sitting still in a formal meditation posture, the practice is essentially still the same. We're simply noticing. We're starting to learn more and more about this mind, its habits, its likes and dislikes. Seeing actions as they come and they go. But the difference is now we're learning not to take it personally. We simply notice, this is the mind full of liking, wanting, desire. This is a mind full of hatred, anger, jealousy, aversion. It's just conditioned states. See how they come. See how they go. And see how letting go, without identifying them as me or mine, is peaceful. This is a mind filled with thoughts of confusion, drowsiness or dullness. It's simply passing mind states. So start to notice them more. And see them, as we mentioned, as clouds passing through the mind and the bright sky of awareness. And don't cling. As soon as you pick them up, suffering or stress begins. So simply wake up, let go, and rest the mind back into just simple awareness. Nothing to do, nothing to get, nothing to push away. Can you be just okay with that? With this naked awareness just now. Thoughts and feelings come. So what? Just see their empty, ephemeral nature. And as soon as you bring awareness to it, what happens? Sounds come. Smells come. Maybe sights come. So what? Are they there now? Gone in a flash. No real substance to any of them. And where are you in all this? Just knowing. Just being awake. Being the knowing. Not the judger. Not the analyzer. And not the possessor of any of these experiences. Good or bad. Painful or blissful. They all simply come and go. And you stay seated on the bank. Just watching the river flow. as the mind becomes more settled and calm, as the waves settle, you start to notice that the river of perceptions are not separate from you. They're all simply arising and dissolving in the very space of awareness itself. So why go into battle with them? They're emerging from this empty space, and they naturally dissolve within the same empty space. We don't have to make them dissolve. But if we try to cling to things we like, there's no chance. So we need these open palms of allowing things to come and go. Not grasping anything. And that's where we find peace and contentment. We see the essential, non-dual, non-divided nature of everything. And we let go of this delusion of a me in here and a world out there. It's all just happening within. And at the same time, there is no within. As we look more and more and go deeper, this reality will become clearer. But give up thinking about it or conceptualizing it. If you see yourself reifying an idea of reality, then you're simply lost in your head. So let that go as well. It's simply just another delusory appearance. The essential nature is way beyond ideas of essential nature. So come back into your body if you have a tendency to do that, and just be natural, grounded, and empty. If you're drifting, drowsy, or sleeping, open the eyes for a while. Notice what these sensations of drowsiness feel like, and how the mind is dull, cloudy, and also just wants to zone out. If the mind is restless, thinking, anxious, lost in plans and imaginations, take a few deep breaths and re-establish mindfulness with the breathing. If the mind is calm and peaceful, spacious and open, don't get attached to those blissful feelings. Just utilize that calmness and openness to look more and more into the way things are. And to question the one who is peaceful. And allow these insights to arise naturally from not clinging. So gently come out from the formal sitting and stretch as you need to. And now there's an opportunity for questions. Try and keep the questions focused on... try to keep the questions focused on the practice, anything that's come up for you. And that will be helpful for the day too, if we can have that sort of focus as well. So I invite Ayya Jitindriyā to come back for the Q&A. And I'll just put the chat feature back on.
So if you have questions, pop them into the chat box. There'll be a little bit of a delay before we get to see them.
We think.
Mm-hmm. So nothing's appearing.
I'm just going to put test in. Oh, there it is.
Here we go. We're finally. We've got a slightly poor connection here.
Can you take the first one?
So the first question from Reverend Dillis is, it seems that what I am noticing is all of my insights are around ordinary things right in front of me. And while it may seem ordinary, these simple, straightforward insights are life-changing. That's right. It's a good insight in itself. Because when we talk about noticing the way things are and realizing the way things are, sometimes we might imagine, it's seeing something extraordinary and mind-blowing, that insight has to be something super special, or at least based on something super special. But exactly when we're just observing ordinary things, sight, sound, that's all there is really. Sight, sound, smells, tastes, sensations, thoughts, ideas, mental experiences, mind states, emotions. These are things we live with day in and day out, but we haven't necessarily noticed them in line with Dharma, in line with just seeing their coming and going. They don't have a substantial, solid existence. They have a sensory impact and then they're gone, and then the mind will pick it up, make something of it or not. But when we see these simple things, the Buddha said to notice this characteristic of change and ephemeralness of all of our experience. He said that because it does elicit insight and helps to bring the mind to clarity. And although we conceive of that and think that's quite evident, self-evident, quite simple. If we don't actually bring mindfulness and awareness to it in the moment, the insight doesn't deepen and the mind doesn't align with Dharma and truth and undercut ignorance. But when we do that, it's clear, and this increases one's faith and confidence in the path and clears up the view as we move forward. So very good. Thank you for pointing that out, Reverend.
And just to add that I think this idea that we label things as ordinary, what does that even mean? How did we get to a state where we think being alive is ordinary, or breathing is ordinary, or this experience of life is ordinary? We've become so complacent about something that's actually quite extraordinary and mysterious. So then we go chasing extraordinary experiences, whether it be through meditation or drugs or other highs, sensory indulgence, peak experiences, because life is ordinary. But who said it was ordinary? How did we get to this position? And just to be alive and to breathe is actually it's extraordinary. It's a miracle. And if you really reflect on the basics of our so-called ordinary experience, it's actually quite mind-blowing. And we become so habituated to life that it's lost its aliveness. So I think we need to really challenge this notion of ordinary and, normality. And that's why people, when they recognize awareness, they say, so what? Because they can't see how extraordinary it actually is, the simple things in life. So this is about coming back to those basics and not needing to chase peak experiences or mind-altering substances when our mind is already blown open by just being. Okay. So Amy's saying, I'm finding my way back to the path of sobriety after a relapse. Good for you. This practice is very helpful. Is there a way to truncate thoughts about drinking when they arise using this practice? Yeah, I mean, the whole noticing the desires, the desire mind that comes up to want to have a drink, and so to start to look into that, to develop insights about what is this about? What am I, without becoming too overly analytical about it, what is just noticing the feeling that arises that one wants to get away from and dull it with drinking or drugs or whatever other addictions we all have, shopping, social media. Drinking is just one of many. So noticing when that feeling of discomfort, anxiety, fear, whatever it is that arises that we want to get away from and to drink it away. So this is what we're doing. That last 30 minutes is simply sitting, noticing those feelings and thoughts, emotions that come up that we want to push away or cling on to. But the whole practice is to notice that these aren't me and mine. They're simply habitual responses. And as we develop more of the witnessing attitude, we're letting go of that identification with feelings, with thoughts, perceptions, all of the sensory input as being personal. We stop taking all of this stuff personally, and the knowing nature becomes stronger, and we can just see that come and go. But I'd like to, because Jitindriyā has worked a lot in this field, just to say a little bit more about that.
Well, perhaps
addiction and
just
so on.
to simply say that with any addictive behaviour, particularly as we observe the mind, it is a habit reaction to want to go there. If it's been about drinking, the mind will, deflect to throwing up images of perhaps having a drink and imagining a feeling of release when you have that drink or satisfaction. But just keep noticing that's just the habit of the mind. So as Jayasāra said, we're often moving away from something painful habitually, but also we're imagining something pleasant that we might get in the future. But it's all the play of imagination. And it's just that habit of the mind to go down one particular street. For someone else, it might be a narcotic, or for someone else it might be shopping or gambling, but we can get obsessed with anything. If you've got a project on and you've been thinking about it a lot, you've got to notice it, yet the mind just keeps going back there because that's where it's been. So it develops habits. This is what we call the conditioned mind. So that's how you can depersonalize it. You see, it keeps going back there. It's not you or your fault, it's just a habit. When you recognize it's simply a habit, then give the mind something more skillful to be with. And if the breath is too subtle at the time, then pick something more skillful that you can give your attention to that will be helpful. So I'll leave that there for now.
I want to read the next question.
Jani's asking, what is the difference between holding a meditative state and being in a place of blanking out? Is there an element of awareness in the meditative state? Yes, well, the meditative state should always have awareness. Yes, you could say that blanking out, if you've kind of come back into a place of awareness, and you don't know where the mind's been, or you feel like you've been asleep or just wandering in a kind of a dreamy state. If there's no awareness, it's not what we're wanting to cultivate, but we do just recognize that happens. It's another habit of the mind to perhaps blank out at times. But it can even be something that develops with attentional training, is that sometimes our attention can sink into a complete blank state. So from the master's teachings, they encourage us to become aware of this and to not get lulled by that the true place of practice is always has awareness, and awareness that becomes increasingly clear and lucid. This is the place.
So the question, see what happens when you
get too far.
Yeah. Okay. The question under Jani's is, how does one deal with fear along the path? I have a lot of difficulty with the fear of losing control or letting go of the idea of my identity and who I am, especially when sitting for retreats. Yeah, and that is a natural thing that will come up when we're habituated to thinking that I am me, this ego personality. And when the mind settles, then that kind of mechanism of creating a sense of self starts to either slow down or break down. So it's the ego does have a kind of a natural fear of losing itself. But what has to be seen is that the ego in itself is a creation, is an illusion. So with fear, a lot of, what I find helpful with practicing with fear is to go towards it rather than run away from it, because, you've heard that saying, what is it?
When we turn to face our deepest fears, we may never have to meet them.
Well, that's one. That's a good one. But there's another one that says, what you fear starts to turn into a monster. I can't remember. But there's lots of those sayings. So the more you resist fear, the bigger it grows. So it's not about, encouraging you not to resist fear or run away from it, but to turn to face it, like that lovely Chinese proverb. And then those things just dissolve. So, but that takes a bit of courage, but also encouragement from people who faced it before to see how things aren't as big and scary as we imagine they are. The imagination and the fear of fear itself is, a lot worse than the actual fear, which can just dissolve in an instant. But also know that is a natural response when we pick up this practice. Fear will come up, anger will come up, desire will come up. The other thing I guess to say too is not to push ourselves to go, if there's post-traumatic stress disorder, past traumas, it's not about pushing you into it to, drown in the deep end. You have to decide for yourself what you're capable of facing and dealing with. So if you're saying sitting for retreats, if it's too intense, I wouldn't encourage you to do long retreats, maybe just a day or 2 days. And when you feel that, you're getting to understand the fear process and what's coming up, then you might be able to do longer retreats. So it's not about just pushing people into it and go into a 10-day retreat and face it all. And people can burn out and spin out if it's too much. So gently, but also have some courage just to face it, knowing that fear is just really in our imaginations. Do you want to say a little bit more about
I'll
it?
just add that
Your programs on the internet could be helpful too, on the website.
There's some Working with Challenging Emotions series on our website addresses fear and desire as the big drivers of activity in the mind. So tune into our website and find those. That might be helpful. But just to say here for this question, the fear of losing control, that is endemic for all of us, the ego identity. But to say it's also another habit to want to stay in control, or another habit of the mind, keeping things under control, because it's kind of the way we learn to navigate this life, and the way we're schooled and conditioned and educated is, to a certain extent, to stay in control and to not recognize one of the characteristics of existence, of insubstantiality, is that we don't have control over so much in life. It's not under our control what the weather does or what happens next. It's largely an illusion that we're in control of our life in terms of the future, and whilst on an everyday level we are controlling certain things, anything can happen at any time. So, but to look at it as another habit of mind, to want to stay in control, to avoid the fear of feeling anything can happen. Just gradually make friends with that. The valence of anicca is uncertainty, not sure. And it's okay, actually, to feel that way. It can lead into a real open, peaceful place of mind. So just a prompt there. Shall we go to the next question?
You do the next question? I think it's that.
Thank you for today. Could you explain vipassana versus sati? So vipassana is the Pali word. It literally means seeing into, and has come to be known as insight. And related with a particular type of meditation, which is investigating the nature of reality, or looking into the way things are in terms of anicca or impermanence, insubstantiality, or when clinging is present, the stress involved in that. So vipassana, insight, sees clearly the nature of reality. Now, sati is mindfulness, which is the main tool for insight. The mindfulness is presence of mind, and which can increase in capacity and intensity when it comes to full awareness. If we can cultivate a continuous and full awareness. So mindfulness is always present within that. And mindfulness is the tool for seeing the way things are, being present and noticing. So I'll leave it with that as a simple.
Good, yeah. Thank you for today. Could you explain? No, sorry. Do you wish to share anything from your recent retreat? It's nice to see you both again. So my recent retreat, I'll speak of my recent retreat, was a retreat to contemplate loss and grief. As you know, we lost our little caddy in a very quick way. We weren't expecting her. I mean, she was old, but we weren't expecting the event to unfold as it did. So in a sense, it was her parting gift of Dharma to us, because it threw us straight into a recognition of impermanence, that whatever forms we love and cherish are one day going to pass. And we adored and loved our little caddy so much, and she was such a part of this hermitage and part of our life, and we got a very powerful lesson. So for really the past 2 weeks or more, our retreat has been focused on feeling into those very human emotions of grief, loss, sadness, and also, we're fortunate to be able to contemplate that loss with Dharma. And also at the same time, we feel a great sense of joy and gratitude and wonderment of having had this very special cat being in our life who just radiated so much presence and love and so many things. She just was very special, and she was also very cheeky.
Yeah, but she provided a lot of giggles.
I think
laughs.
We also really saw her grow, because I've known her. I hadn't always been in her life, but I was the one that kind of picked her up from the bush when she was dumped 22 years ago. And for her mature years, she was with us for 5-6 years, was it? Yeah, so we saw her blossom and grow. As she got older, she just got so much more trusting and open and loving and present. So she was often our Dharma reflection, because as you know, with cats, they have an ability just to be. I'm not saying they've got lots of wisdom necessarily, but they certainly have the capacity just to be and to be empty and
be content most of the time, and when they're mature.
Content, especially older cats, or this one too. And she hadn't experienced too much trauma, and she'd been cared for quite well all her life. So many reflections, which I won't go into, but as you can imagine, with a powerful, quick loss, many people have experienced that with loved ones. It throws you really into what's important in life, letting go of fleeting, petty concerns, and recognizing that this body too will go the same way as our cattie's body, and to inspire us to practice more and more with Dharma and maintain that wakefulness and understanding of things. So there's too many reflections really to go into, but I'll just say that much because it's been a very powerful time for us. So I think here, Jit.
Yeah, so in the second session, I started feeling shoulder pain for no reason. I imagine if I'd moved, it would have disappeared, but I sat with it, observing. Any advice on pain during a session? Well, just as you did, if it's not overwhelming, or even if it's overwhelming initially, always try to bring mindfulness and awareness to what you're experiencing, what your experience is in the moment. With pain, you'll start to notice just the habitual tendency at first to want to shift straight away. But as awareness increases, we can just say, pain, the feeling of pain. Where do I feel that? How do I feel that? And try to locate it, the actual sensations of pain in the body, and see if you can breathe with it. This is my general instruction. Can I breathe with this? One full in-breath, one full out-breath, as it is. Breathe with it as it is. And this can help to undercut any habitual tendency to want to get rid of it, which is a natural response to pain. And see if you can breathe with it a few times in and out and observe what happens. Quite often, through that process, the pain can begin to diminish or disappear for a while. Now, it's up to each of us just to notice if it's something that requires moving after you've recognized it, then, a bad knee or something that could cause problems physically. It's absolutely okay to move, but do that as part of your practice, so it's not just interrupting the practice. So first of all, awareness and mindfulness to the pain, breathing with it. If you recognize that you need to move, then do that slowly and mindfully. Just re-establish a posture that feels comfortable. Now, for some people, they might want to work more specifically with pain, whether it's chronic pain or acute pain. It's up to you how far you want to take it in terms of breathing with it. And that mindfulness and awareness and breathing with can actually help relax. What happens is the tension around a painful sensation, other muscles, the whole body begins to tense, and then with resistance mentally. But if that process can be allayed through non-reactivity, through acceptance, even kindness, breathing in love and out love to that pain, then sometimes it can ease out all by itself without us moving. And this can be a powerful experience when we see that. So it is something to explore in your practice and contemplate. Do you want me to read one?
Yeah.
Can you explain how one can find a mentor or teacher? I'm overwhelmed by so many offering the Dharma.
There are many offering the Dharma. How can you find one? There's so many to find. I guess the encouragement is to just see who resonates with you, who you resonate with, and this may change over time. Some people you've got to be a bit cautious about too, because they could be the blind leading the blind. But I guess I'd look into their lineage, who their teacher was, if they're authentic or they're just someone who's popping up on YouTube, ourselves included, although we do have a lineage, claiming to be an enlightened teacher. And I think there's a few of them out there too. But Ramana Maharshi used to say, because he'd get asked this question, how do I trust who's an authentic teacher? He would say, by the degree of peace that you feel in their presence. But even that, you could fool yourself sometimes, or some people are quite charismatic. I'm sure Jim Jones may have been quite charismatic, and people might have felt peace too. So that's not 100% foolproof, but what he's saying is that you do have to trust your intuition. And if they're saying anything that's harmful, causing harm, or, that's why the Buddha gave these precepts as a guideline, isn't it? So if you've got teachers who are, drinking and out having multiple sexual relationships and not keeping the precepts, then I'd run a mile. So you have to use your discretion, don't you? Discrimination. But and even if you get a dodgy teacher, you can still learn from that, so that you don't go following a dodgy teacher the next time. Okay, but yeah, everyone's an expert out there, isn't there? Everyone's got an opinion, and
but finding what works
teachers,
for you
and what works for you.
Excuse me.
Yeah, but that can be deluding too, because it makes me feel good. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're a good teacher if you feel good. Some good teachers will make you feel not good because they're speaking the truth and pushing your buttons. Oh, I don't like that. They want me to give up this or do that. They're encouraging me. So I'll go to someone who makes me feel good. It's just part of the path. But, if you look into the lineage and that they're aligned with something that's authentic and verifiable, then that could be a good measure. So do you want to take the next one? When I'm overwhelmed.
When I'm overwhelmed by a conditioned mind state, I can notice the changing nature, but what can I do when I've already been carried away? Meditation seems not to work then. Okay, so it's a bit of a change of view we need here, because if you're waking up, you've been carried away, which means your attention has just been siphoned off into a stream of thinking about the past or the future or daydreaming. You just notice that right there and then. You wake up to that. It can be a problem for meditators. They start thinking, oh, I'm so rotten at this. I was just lost for half an hour. It's terrible. I'm going to have to try really hard to stay on the path, to stay focused so I don't lose it again. But this is not recommended. This is just more thinking and projection of blame and negativity, which doesn't help anything. So the practice is really just to wake up. We all get carried away by habitual thinking. But the more we can wake up to when we are, in a particular wormhole of thought, that's it. That's the whole practice, simply waking up. And in that place, you don't go anywhere. You don't have to run back to the beginning of the wormhole before you got sucked in. Although you can recognize what happened. I heard a sound and that made me think of this, and then I thought of that, and there you go. But the practice is simply waking up. As soon as you've become aware you're in a wormhole, the wormhole disappears, the thoughts disappear. There's just the clarity of awareness. Maybe the next second or the next few seconds, the power of that stream was so strong, you want to think about it again, or you find yourself thinking about it then. Simply wake up. Recognize that. You simply recognize that. As soon as you recognize the thoughts are gone and what's present, it's just this purity of awareness that you've recognized. So really, some people say, thoughts and activity of the mind are just modulations of awareness. And in one sense it is. It's just, like I say, we've gone in, attention has been siphoned into a particular tunnel or wormhole or conceptual proliferation. But it hasn't gone anywhere. That's just imagination. As soon as we wake up to what's happening, everything dissolves in the moment. And seeing that is helpful. You haven't gone off the path. You just simply lost sight of awareness for a moment. As soon as you recognize that, it's back. You want to add anything?
No,
that's all good.
Can you read the one?
I often feel relief as the formal practice ends and myself enthusiastically grabs the wheel of my experience again. Can I expect this to soften over time? Any other tips?
Myself enthusiastically grabs the wheel of my experience again.
Well, it's a bit like taking control again. Feels relief at the end of practice and sees my ego grabbing the wheel of experience again.
Yes, you can expect it to soften over time. But it's also just the fact that you're noticing that wanting to grab, become... we have to become an ego to some extent in the world to function. We have to have a personality. But just to notice if there's a grabbing tendency to that and what that feels like. Because if it's too tight and we take it too seriously, then when someone insults this self, then we get upset. So noticing how that mechanism works in relationships, in daily life, that is the process of softening it. Just keep noticing that and noticing what it comes up against, what it likes, what it doesn't like outside of the formal practice. So the formal practice is just an opportunity to stop too much input so we can see a little clearly the muddy water metaphor that we've been using. When we're moving in the world, there's a lot more muddy water to contend with, inside and outside with others, but it doesn't mean we stop practicing. We still start to see in the same way. The push-pull nature, the liking, the disliking, the reactivity. And the more we notice that in relationship, in daily life, the more this will soften as it becomes clearer, and we just keep letting go in that process as well.
Can I just add a tiny bit?
Please.
It's a little bit related to that earlier question about the ego wanting to control. And sometimes in meditation, if we're just observing, you might feel out of control. But just try this little shift in that when in meditation, sometimes we can get overly obsessed, as I said earlier in the reflection, with the moving activity of mind, just noticing the activity, and forget to notice and rest in awareness itself. If we learn to notice and rest in awareness itself, we still have the awareness of activity, but mind's not obsessed with the object. So things come and go much more peacefully. And when we learn to rest in awareness, it becomes perhaps more enjoyable, more peaceful, so that when the meditation ends, we have more an experience of this continuity of awareness. We're just opening our eyes and moving into a different mode. So let's try looking into that subtle shift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Charles has asked underneath that, what answer doesn't have a question?
Charles must be a Zen practitioner.
This one.
Awareness itself.
Okay.
That's my response.
We've only really got time for another few questions, so we're going to apologise in advance because there seems to be a lot of questions, I think, in this thread. But my encouragement would be to see if you can answer your own question too, because I think often we can if we just sit with it.
So Maddie's is just a comment.
Oh, Maddie's the comment.
Thank you, Maddie, for your
okay.
gratitude. And Amy's
comment.
too.
I'll take that as a comment. Is it possible for an astral being to want or to be able to harm my true being and consciousness? ? A friend of mine scared me with this. I used it to dissolve my deep fear that I might not exist. This is just fear and imagination. Can't comment on any specific astral beings or entities, but even if you don't believe them, or if you do believe them or you experience them, you can still face them in the same way that we face any fears. Is just to see that being itself is empty too, and we can have compassion if we feel that, whether it's an astral being or a human being who wants to hurt us, just to be sensible about not putting ourselves in harm's way in whatever way we can, but also not to fear this fear itself, and to practice a couple of things. One, having compassion if someone does want to harm you, and because they're only going to harm themselves. And two, try to see that it's just an empty nature as well. It's just their own conditioned responses of anger or hatred or whatever. But look, you're saying you're using it to dissolve your fear anyway. So that's good. Keep going with that. The more you understand the deep Dharma, the more that fear is just another thing that arises and ceases, and nothing to be afraid of. Hear what?
So awareness of consciousness is becoming more and more evident. The world is kind of fading away in a way. How do you let go of the attachment of your loved ones? It's hard to let go. I wouldn't force it. When you say awareness is becoming more and more evident, the world is fading away, the world in the Buddha's dispensation is just that, the activity of the senses, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. The less interest or attachment we have there, then the less our mind is distracted and stressed by it all. In terms of attachment to loved ones, perhaps let your attachment become purified. The love that we might feel is perhaps more personal and attached, you could just broaden it to be more universal. Because love is a natural expression of the nature of mind, love for all beings, unconditional love and compassion. So just let your love broaden and deepen to this level, and attachment will fall away naturally.
Okay, maybe.
So, Reverend.
Oh, it's 12 o'clock.
Yeah, it's coming up. Oh, okay. Do you want to take one more, or?
Maybe not, because we've only got we've got an hour and a half for lunch. Maybe one more. So Reverend's just making a comment, which people can read.
Okay.
Is abiding in empty awareness and feeling peaceful all there is to it? Or is there some kind of breakthrough to expect? Well, you have to find that out, Hans. What would be us saying?
There is breakthrough, but you expect it because it won't happen.
Yeah, expectation's part of the problem. But I think, abide in empty awareness, feeling peaceful is just part of the foundation of allowing the mind to be peaceful so that we can look. But if we just get stuck in peaceful states, and if we're just thinking and conceptualizing empty awareness, then no, that's not all there is to it. We have to keep using self-inquiry, using investigation to look into the nature of reality. But only you can do that. We can speak from our own experiences or from the teachings of the Master, but really you're the only one that can see what's going on in the moment for you, and where there might be blockages, delusion, stuckness. Who knows what's going on in there? Only you. So keep looking, keep seeing where you might be stuck. Use your relationships as a mirror, because our relationships will tell us where we're stuck. If we go around thinking that we're already enlightened and I understand what awareness is and I feel peaceful, but people in our lives think we're real pains in the butt because we're disconnected or, whatever. These things can happen in spirituality where we bypass relationships. So, and I'm not saying that they're right, but relationships can be really helpful. That's why living in community is a good thing to do, because we come up against the stuff, our delusions, where we think we're evolved. Other people will show us we're not that evolved at all. So they're our great teachers. And if you're feeling kind of complacent, because this question sounds a little bit like a bit of complacency there, I might be wrong, then go and challenge yourself somewhere. Go and volunteer in a program. Go and be with people, with your family, and see how you are. See what we can learn from that. So life is always teaching us, and those places where we don't want to go because we feel uncomfortable maybe are good places to go because they show up something. But, only you can really judge for yourself what's going on and where you need to let go, where you need to wake up. And I think the Dharma has a magical way of doing that, doesn't it? It kind of sends into our lives people and events that we need to wake up more and more and to see the blockages and the obstacles. So just trust in the Dharma and keep letting go and seeing where we might be fooling ourselves, if that's happening. And if breakthroughs, and that is a breakthrough, actually. Those sort of things are breakthroughs. Okay, so it's just after 12. The program, and sorry for all those questions we didn't get to.
Maybe later.
And maybe some of the other questions we've answer your question. That often happens. So we're going to take a break now for lunch. So if you're on the same time zone as us, we'll be back here at 1:30, but that's an hour and a half.
Hour and 25 minutes from here.
From this time now. So we'll be back with a Dharma reflection and some more meditation. So please enjoy a quiet meal wherever you are, a nutritious meal, and we will too.
And join us again by clicking into the third session, the third video, 3 of 4, for the next session in 1 hour and 25 minutes.
Well remembered.
See you then.
Okay.